What's up, St. Louis? Jamal Mayers here. Want a chance to watch the Blues like an insider with me? When you become an annual STL Sports Central insider, you're automatically entered to win. We're picking 2 winners, each bringing a guest to join me in the Blues Alumni Suite for the game versus the Edmonton Oilers on Friday, March 13th. That's right, Connor McDavid. We'll have free drinks, heavy appetizers, and an unforgettable night of Blues hockey. Sign up now at STL Sports Central, and I'll see you at the game.
Hey, it's always great to be with Bernie MIklasz on STL Sports Central. That's Bernie. I'm Randy. We are presented by DraftKings, where the crown is yours. Of course, yes. You can read Bernie's great work here at STLSportsCentral.com. And if you become an insider, you can do more than just view us for the first portion of a video. You get to see our whole video. You get to read all of Bernie's great work. He is the preeminent sports columnist in St. Louis sports history, plus an opportunity to hang out with Jamal Mayers at a Blues game, ad-free reading experiences at STLSportsCentral.com, all kinds of awesome content. All you need to do is go to STLSportsCentral.com, and if you're an insider, you'll be supporting local independent sports media, which we're very happy about. Bernard J., it's always good to talk to you. This is my favorite part of the week. How you doing?
Oh, I'm doing good. I always look forward to it. Forward to doing it with you. As always, it's like the olden days, but now they're the new version of the olden days.
Yeah, right. We got a little technology going here. And this is one of the great weekends. I know we talked last week about how great division weekend is, and the two of the games were awesome, both in overtime and then 2 blowouts. A championship game weekend for us, though, is incredible. And as we speak, well, as this video drops, it will be on the date that the Rams played the Buccaneers in the NFC Championship game in 2026 years to the day that Ricky Prohl caught that touchdown pass with 4:44 to go against Tampa, and the Rams won 11-6 and catapulted themselves to the Super Bowl. What an amazing, incredible ride that was, and especially that day. That was just an amazing game and an amazing day at the Dome.
That game was so, what's the word? I mean, the players on both sides were, beating the hell out of each other. I mean, Tampa Bay, the reason why the Rams always had a problem with Tampa Bay is, especially in that game, is they were not only really, really fast as a defense. And Mike Martz used to say that. He said, they can run with us, and no other team really can, or at least not like that. He said, plus they'll kick the snot out of you too. They're nasty. They're physical. They're tough. So that was a brawl, and I mean, to their credit, the Bucs were extremely physical, and they really beat on the Rams. And that game was so tense, and it was so draining just to watch. And it was obviously physically draining, emotionally draining for the players. And a lot of Rams really got hurt in that game. But
Torrey Holt was spitting up blood.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. But I can recall exactly what I wrote, after that game, and for the next morning's read, which was around the NFL, media people, teams, whatever. There was a lot of appreciation for the Rams, except for one thing, which is, the greatest show on turf. Boy, it sure is pretty. Boy, it's what a nice circus they got going on there. But what are they going to do when somebody hits them in the mouth and knocks their teeth out? What are they going to do? Don't you remember Merrill Hodge? He would never let up on it when he was on ESPN all the time. Yep. Merrill Hodge apparently thought football should be played, kind of basically like a UFC match or something.
Yeah.
And until they actually won the Super Bowl, he would just malign them constantly for being basically a soft team. And there was no reason to call them that. Was there a reason to question if they could really stand up physically? Sure, that's fair. But my whole thing is like, they shut everyone the hell up about that, because Tampa Bay, man, it was a beatdown. It was a beatdown, and the Rams answered in kind. They did not wilt. They did not back off for 1 inch. So I remember talking to Hanny after. Well, it was
I guess after the assistant coaches, because remember the assistant coaches came down to Atlanta late, and I talked to Hanny about the job that Tom Newton did, and he said it was kind of like he had a couple of cement pillars were his legs, and they were dug 3 feet into the ground, because you didn't hear Warren Sapp's name all day long. Tom Newton just dominated Warren Sapp in that game. So that was one part of it. The Dre Bly interception with the 8:01 to go before the touchdown, and that was a monstrous play before the Ricky Prohl touchdown. And then the other thing, and I know that the Tampa Bay fans still complain about that Bert Emanuel incompletion, but the fact of the matter is, Bernie, they did not score a touchdown. Tampa Bay, they thought they should be in the Super Bowl, but they didn't score a touchdown in the game. And the Rams didn't allow a 100-yard rusher all year long. And to me, that's where you get physical. That's where you win a physical battle, is on defense. And the Rams beat them up as much as the Buccaneers beat up the Rams.
I agree with you. And I'm glad you mentioned Tom Newton, because I think that when we look back at the 99 Rams, to an extent, the defense was underrated, not locally, but I went back a few months ago. Yeah. I went back a few earlier this year, and I was studying that defense with some of the tools that are available now that weren't available then. That was a great defense. It was just a great, great defense. Now, did it help them to play with the leads because the offense would score a lot of? Sure. But when they had to win tight games and they had to make stops, they were really, really good. And they had all those they scored all those defensive touchdowns. It was amazing. They were like the greatest show on turf extension because they were a high-scoring defense, right? So that defense was...
I think it was, Bernie, if I'm not mistaken, 10 defense and special teams touchdowns that they scored there.
Yeah. And so, but the group that might have been, I could be wrong about this, but I always thought, like, in real time, let's say in real time, I thought that offensive line was unappreciated because the Rams dropped back and threw so often. And Mike Martz, when I made a Hall of Fame presentation for Orlando Pace, I pointed out that his years as the offensive tackle, but especially the left tackle with Martz as the coordinator and then the head coach, they ran more empty sets than any offense like in a decade. Like teams were not running empty sets. Martz ran them all the time, which meant that offensive line better be great. Orlando Pace in particular better be great, because when you're setting Kurt up in empty sets, there is no extra protection. It's your protection is kind of naked, actually. And I almost got you know how you and I, you go out in restaurants or you go get a beer or something. And I remember there was a night, and I'm not going to overstate it. It's not like I was close to getting in a fight. I haven't been in a fight since my junior year of college. And that was breaking up a fight, not starting a fight. But anyway, some loudmouth recognized me. He says, "Why are you always saying all this stuff about Orlando Pace being so great? Orlando Pace he was awful. He gave up all those sacks all the time, And I'm all, listen, man, strong opinions are great, but it drives me crazy when these like big mouths, they have no idea what they're talking about. I mean, Orlando Pace, it's like the dude, as you know, held out as a rookie. And then, he didn't come to camp, when they franchise tagged him, because he didn't have to come to camp.
Right.
But people never forgave him for that. And then because of that, they basically said, I didn't think he was that good. I'm not going to get into it. I did a mountain of research on that. And his level of pass protection was unbelievable. And I've talked to NFL coaches and general managers, and they said all those great left tackles of that time, he was clearly the best because he had the most demanding job. And none of those other guys could have ever did what he did, which is to protect Kurt Warner's blind side all the time, even when they were running two people at him. He could X out two guys because he was so quick. And that's right.
That is, I'm glad you said that, because when the Rams would game plan, and I know that you've heard this from Coach Hannafin and Coach Martz, but they would literally start the game plan by they had a red Sharpie, and they would just put a red Sharpie through the right end of the opposing team because they knew that he would be a non-factor. So they would just X him out and say, okay, Now let's go from here because we know that defensive player is not going to be a factor today.
You know, when I was getting my stuff ready for Orlando Pace, because you remember he didn't get in the first time, and frankly, I think he got in the second year that he was eligible, and I took it personally that he didn't get in, and I said, well, there must have been something I didn't include, which actually was wrong because I'm guilty of over preparing, but I made sure to call up some NFL defensive ends that went against him, and I'll never forget it. Chuck Smith, Falcons, right? I think it was Falcons.
Yep, that's a great story.
Yeah, you know, Chuck Smith told me two things. He said, "Man, number one, trying to get around that guy was like trying to get around a mountain. Forget about it. Like it didn't matter how quick I thought I was, or we sent two people. I had a helper to go in. We thought we would double team him. One of us would spring loose. No, it was like two guys were trying to rush his side. And it's like, well, how the hell do we get around this mountain? We can't. And then he said, and then it was criminal. I said, what do you mean criminal? He said, a man that big should not be allowed under law to have feet that quick. That should be illegal. And then the third thing he told me, which really made me laugh, is he said, you know, dude, he says, I've never told anybody this. Orlando Pace made me cry. And I said, what do you mean? He said, not because he beat me up. I did the best that I could, and I was physical with him. He was just so frustrating. I just would cry because I couldn't do a damn thing with him. So I told that story in the meeting room. And again, not that anybody needed to be persuaded, but John Clayton came up with some great stuff as well. But anyway, I didn't mean to go on that. But see, you always get me. You always trigger me on memory lane.
This is great, and I'm glad you brought up Chuck Smith because when Orlando was a rookie, a game in Atlanta, Smith actually got him, and I think it was like Orlando's fifth or sixth start in the NFL. And Chuck Smith might have gotten him for a sack or two, and he was talking. He was jabbering at Orlando, and Orlando told himself then, he said, this guy will never get me again. And that goes to what you're talking about because he, after that, never had a chance against Orlando Pace. The worst thing that Chuck Smith ever could have done is try to trash talk Orlando Pace. And once he did, in Orlando, you know, he came into his own in 98. Chuck Smith was never to be heard from again against Orlando Pace.
And then, you know, again, I hate to do this because it's like I remember the good times, which we are, and all the greatness of Orlando Pace, but every time he gave up a sack, I mean, people would lose their minds. And, you know, the guy that was hollering at me one night, trying to egg me on, I think he said something like, well, gosh, he gave up 6 sacks last year, blah, blah, blah. I said, idiot. It should have been 16 sacks, okay? You're missing the whole point. Watch the game. Don't go to Rams games and drink 30 beers until you don't know what the hell you're looking at. And then I walked away from them. So anyway.
And Bernie, you and I both were introduced and became sports fans because of our fathers. And my dad had COPD, and that was and so he took me to games from 1970, football Cardinal games. He would buy season tickets. And then when the Rams got here, then I got them for us. And that was the last football game my dad ever went to, was that NFC Championship game against Tampa. He just couldn't get, up and down steps anymore after that. And so it's pretty cool that in his last game that he ever went to, because he never cheered for a good team, it was always the Cardinals or the Rams. So the last game he ever goes to gets his team to the Super Bowl.
I love that. That's a beautiful story. Yeah. It really is. Can I tell you a quick dad story?
Yeah.
My father, so of course, original Colts season ticket holders in Baltimore as part of a season ticket drive to get the team to move from Dallas. But the Burt Bell, the commissioner of the league, said, well, Baltimore's got to sell. I think it was 7,500 season tickets. So I'm allowed to use the word Polak because I am one. So this band of East Baltimore Polaks in the early 50s, we got about 35 seats as a family, and we had those seats from the first game there till the last game they played in. But anyway, so my dad I was really lucky because my dad, there were so many relatives. I would always get somebody's ticket. So I'd be sitting there 5 years old watching this stuff. So my dad and I would talk about certain stuff coming home. And I asked him one time, I said, Dad, I saw Jim Parker like at the end of his career. And I knew that was a great offensive lineman, and how great was he? And my father would just talk about Jim Parker, and for good reason. Arguably in the conversation, the short list of great offensive linemen in NFL history. But when my father watched Rams games, he said, that's Jim Parker.
Wow.
He said, that's Jim Parker. And I said, what? I said, well, that coming from you, that's an amazing compliment. He said, I see Jim Parker. I told Orlando that because Jim Parker, by the way, was an Ohio State guy.
Oh, okay. Uh-huh.
And I told Orlando that, and Orlando was actually touched because, he understands that Jim Parker was a legend, the standard for all offensive tackles, so anyway, that's my story. So my father loved watching that team because he wanted to see Jim Parker, who was Orlando Pace.
Love it.
Yeah.
So Bernie, this weekend, number one, I hate to like the Patriots, but I think Drake May is a stud, and I think Mike Vrabel is awesome, and I think they've done a great job. I didn't like the Belichick Patriots, as you know, but this is a different era, and I don't know what to believe from Sean Payton if Jared Stidham is really ready, and if Jared Stidham is really an NFL starting quarterback. I can tell you this from what I've seen, I don't think so. Maybe he's different now than what he was when he played for the Patriots or when he played for the Raiders. The Patriots are a 4.5-point favorite on the road, and I just think that's a really good line. I can easily see the Patriots winning this game by 5 points.
I'm with you on that. Two things. First of all, Stidham, Josh McDaniels drafted him. He basically talked Belichick into drafting him with the Patriots. Mm-hmm. And so Josh McDaniel and, the Patriots tried to talk themselves into the fact that he could be the guy to succeed Brady, and it obviously didn't work. Mm-hmm. So then Josh McDaniels out in Oakland, when he was the head coach there, he brought him in. Same thing. Mm-hmm. Thought he could be the guy. And it just never even came close to happening. So that tells you a lot right there. And first of all, I think Josh McDaniels knows a lot about him that he can make sure Vrabel and that defense know all about, this is what you do to the guy. So they're going to have a little built-in inside help there. But the thing of it is, I think Sean Payton is brilliant about getting quarterbacks ready. The dude whose name I never can remember. Is it Taysom Hill? Was that who it was?
Yeah, yep. Taysom Hill with the teams. Yep.
Yeah, when Breeze got hurt, Hill came in and they went 5-1 with him as a starter. So I don't rule out that Peyton can get him ready to play well, but I'm telling you, I'm not buying into it. And the other thing is Denver is got a below average rushing attack. There's nothing exceptional about the way they run the ball. And the fact that Bo Nix isn't there, because he gave them that extra juice in the running game. He was a good scrambler. He could always take off and go. I don't see it happening. The Patriots, this year, there was a stretch of about 4 or 5 games where they were bad against the run. But since they got that big dude Williams back and a couple of other people back, they have been great against the run. I don't see Denver having a chance unless the Patriots turn the ball over a bunch of times or all of a sudden they're able to run the ball much better than expected against the New England defense.
Yeah, I'm with you 100% there. And the other game, the Rams at Seattle, a 2.5-point favorite, and I have a ton of respect for the Seahawks, and especially their defense, which was they allowed the fewest points in the league this year. But the Rams intercepted Sam Darnold 4 times in their first game in LA. The Rams intercepted Darnold 2 times in their second game in Seattle, and the Rams intercepted Caleb Williams 3 times last week in Chicago. I have to believe the over-under, by the way, on Darnold interceptions this weekend is 2. I think Darnold throws 2 or 3 picks, and anybody who watches football knows that turnovers are the difference, and I hate that the Rams are going to have a chance in this game. It's basically the odds makers at 2.5. They're calling it a pick 'em, and I just don't see Seattle being, especially without Charbonnet. I don't think that they'll be able to keep it going against the Rams. that defense for the Rams, and I know that they were 10th in the league. Of all the teams that played, that are playing this weekend, Seattle they allowed the fewest points. The Broncos allowed the third fewest. Patriots allowed the fourth fewest. Then the Rams allowed the 10th fewest. But I think they'll pick off Darnold, and I think that they'll get some turnovers, and I think the Rams will win the game.
I've actually been agonizing over this game because all of my common sense says, it's Seattle, man. They're home. Their defense is phenomenal. Darnold in general, but you're right about his play specifically against the Rams. But in general, he's been better than I thought he would be, but not in those two games. Yeah. And the Rams won the first game by a couple of points, and then they lost the overtime game by a point. And they rolled up 580 yards in that game. Now, I do think Matthew Stafford's got something wrong with his index finger, and I don't know if it's better. He's not as accurate as we've seen him, and that was true of the Carolina game. But I just can't bring myself to just count the Rams out. Say, well, it might be tight, but the Rams can win this. I just can't get myself to do that simply because of the magnitude of that defense that Seattle has. But let me can I be a jerk as in like talking stats and
that's not jerky. We love this.
Acting like I'm like this big Coach Bernie or something, so I apologize in advance. I was curious. I'm like, well, why, especially in that second game when the Rams scored 30 some points and 580 yards? So like, what was our offense doing that other offenses couldn't do? And I got in, when I log on to my account at Sports Info Solutions, first of all, I'm going to basically disappear for 2 days. You're not going to see me. So anyway, here's what it is. Sean McVay, who is brilliant, although he called a terrible game at Chicago. Terrible. They needed to run the ball all night long, and they could have run it all night long. But anyway, the Rams use that 3 tight end set. They use it so much more than any other offense in the league that it's kind of like laughable. You see the gap. The Rams, the percentage of snaps with that. Okay. So with 3 tight end sets, the Rams led the league in rushing by about 400 yards. They had 12 rushing touchdowns. When they passed the ball with those 3 tight end sets, they completed 80% of the passes. They threw 20 touchdowns, and they did not have a pass intercepted. Wow. I mean, that 3 tight end set has been unstoppable for the most part. And they did extensive damage to the Seattle defense in the rematch when they played in LA. They used that three tight end set to great advantage, and Seattle had a hard time with it. And Darnold made it easy for the Rams offense to, cash in on interceptions. So my question going into this game, and I put it in one of my videos because, we talk about DraftKings, and I've been trying to throw in something every day. Mm-hmm. What did Seattle learn about, we can't let this happen again? What are they going to do to limit the damage caused by those 3 tight end sets? To me, that's going to be a really big part of the game. It really is. So I'm looking forward to watching it. I told you I'm being a jerk because I went on for like a half an hour about 3 tight end sets. But anyway.
No, it's great. And maybe that'll help you in the NFL playoffs. Let's go. DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NFL, makes every moment feel bigger. In the postseason, the game shifts fast. And with DraftKings live betting options, you can stay right in the moment. Make every moment matter this NFL postseason with DraftKings. And as we mentioned, you got Sam Darnold with that over-under of 2 interceptions. I think that he'll go over that. DraftKings has your back with early exit protection. If the player in your eligible NFL prop bet goes down at any point in the first half, you still get paid in cash. And with DraftKings, you're covered through the entire half. Why bet player props anywhere else? New customers, here's your shot. Bet just $5, and if that bet wins, you get $300 in bonus bets instantly. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app now and use that promo code right there on your screen, STL Sports. That's code STL Sports to turn $5 into $300 in bonus bets if your bet wins. In partnership with DraftKings, the crown is yours.
Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. 21 plus. Physically present in Missouri. Eligibility restrictions apply. Bet must win to receive bonus bets, which expire in 7 days. Additional terms at dkng.co/audio. Limited time offer.
All right, Bernie, let's talk some baseball here. And I couldn't help it when the Cardinals announced on Wednesday that Yadier Molina was going to be a member of their organization again for the third year in a row. This is what the Cardinals released on December 6th of 2023. The St. Louis Cardinals announced Wednesday that they have named franchise icon and former Redbirds catcher Yadier Molina to the position of special assistant to the president of baseball operations, John Mozeliak. He said, quote, "We're excited to welcome Yadi back to the St. Louis Cardinals. He will provide invaluable help at the major league level, as well as spend time with our minor league teams in his new role with the team." The Cardinals saw him twice. They never saw him in the minor leagues. They never saw him in spring training, right? And they saw him a couple of times last year down the stretch after they had basically been eliminated. Well, they had been eliminated from playoff contention. I want to start with this. This is a guy that walked out on the team while he was playing so that he could watch his basketball team play in Puerto Rico. Mm-hmm. He signs, apparently getting paid to be a member of the organization, and didn't show up. I'm wondering why things will be different now. I wonder if Chaim Bloom, I hope he does, has that sort of an effect, or maybe Yadi's son not being a high school player anymore will have an effect. If I'm signing Yadier Molina to a contract to be a special advisor and to help out the organization, which the Cardinals did with their release on Wednesday, I don't know if he's going to show up. Do you? Well, what do you think?
I think he will this time, because part of it is for, his personal reasons and ambitions. Everyone around baseball knew that when he agreed to become an advisor to John Mozeliak, he didn't show up. Everyone around baseball knew that he took time off as a player from the season to go watch his team play basketball in Puerto Rico. Mm-hmm. That stuff, as much respect as they had as a player, that stuff followed him around. So if Yadier Molina has campaigned to be a major league coach, a major league manager, he's made his intentions very, 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 very clear. And I think it's really, really important for him to do that. He really wants to be that guy. Well, it ain't going to happen, like, ever, if he does the same thing to Chaim Bloom that he did to John Mozeliak. It ain't going to happen. So he's got the highest motivation possible. If he's serious about wanting to manage in the big leagues, he is going to have to be great in this role. He is going to have to be great in this role. And you know what I would tell Molina too, not that he would want my advice. This is a great opportunity for him to also open new windows, because he's he's incredibly smart baseball guy. But Chaim Bloom can open up his mind on some things, because listen, people can bitch and scream and squawk all they want about analytics, right? Fine. The fact is, analytics are more important than they've ever been, and there's more and more of them, and smart teams who know how to use them benefit from it. Mm-hmm. And the analytics department in St. Louis is going to be one of the best in baseball after being one of the worst in baseball. And if Yadier Molina wants to strengthen his resume to be a manager, this is pretty obvious, because if teams are interested in him, they're going to make a back channel phone call to Chaim Bloom. And one of the first questions they're going to say, listen, he's old school. God love him. But what was his attitude about analytics? Did you ever try to talk to him? Does he understand it? Does he want to understand it? And if Chaim Bloom would be diplomatic, but he would basically tell someone the truth. Nah, he's just too hard-headed about it. Why would anyone make him the manager in this day and age? They wouldn't. And again, no. I don't care how many people bitch about this. Well, that's just stupid. No, it's the way baseball is. And there's nothing wrong with analytics, because analytics is information.
St. Louis sports fans, go deeper with STL Sports Central Insiders. Get exclusive access to Bernie, Randy, Claves, Jamal Mayers, and more. Plus your chance to watch a Blues game in the alumni box with Jamal himself. Monthly giveaways, Bernie's columns all week, and support for local sports media. Join now at stlsportscentral.com.